Second Timothy. Second Timothy 2. Second Timothy 2. I've got notes, but I don't know how much of it I can use. We're just going to have fun today. Second Timothy 2. Um, verse 12, he says, "If we suffer, we shall also reign with him. If we deny him, he also will deny us." What is he denying? Well, the subject of the verse is ruling or reigning with him. So if you suffer now, then the option is you get to reign with him later. If you won't allow him to put you through some suffering here, then he won't allow you to reign later. So, question is, how does all that play out? I'm delving into some areas that, people can have difference of opinion on, and that's okay. Just get you a bunch of Bible and figure out what it is according to what you've identified. I'm going to give you my take on it, and I think the Old Testament example of it is Shimei. And you'll find you've got to be careful with types and figures and, that type of thing, because I could take a type and I could make it say whatever I wanted it to. So a type is only as good as the rest of the clear Bible that you use to explain it by. So, in essence, you could get away with not having a type, and then a type just adds illustration to what the Bible is plainly said somewhere else. Shimei, I call this the shame of Shimei. So that would be a Christian if he went through this life, and every time God tried to put him through something that he would suffer, the Christian said, "No, I'm not doing that. I've got a way of escape that's not you." And he took another way out. That's obviously shameful. According to 2 Timothy, he wouldn't get the opportunity to reign. And so let's find how this happens throughout the Bible. And I say Shimei is a perfect example of shame. He's a high-minded hypocrite. When David is fleeing because Absalom has taken the throne, he's met by this guy who comes out and throws rocks at him and starts cursing him. Talk about kicking somebody when they're down. That was Shimei. He came out and he was just letting them have it. Now the reason for it is because Shimei is from a line that's in opposition to David. Saul. Saul was a Benjamite, and so is Shimei. David is of the tribe of Judah. Both of those have had a king on the throne, anointed by God. And so Shimei is probably feeling like, my family got put aside so this young whippersnapper can get on the throne. And, it's really my rightful position to be up there. He's no good. We're going to follow his life a little bit and find out what we see. I say he's a high-minded hypocrite. So that's where it starts out. This shame does. And we'll find where it ends soon. In Romans 11, verse 20, he says this: "Well, because of unbelief, they were broken off." That is Israel, referring to the olive tree. "And thou, a Gentile, standest by faith." Okay. Now for your church age application, be not high-minded, but fear. Didn't work for Shimei. He was high-minded. He looked out there and he said, David just got broke off. I'm the originator. I ought to, my family ought to be on that throne and running the kingdom. He was high-minded. God says, don't be high-minded, rather fear. Well, a bunch of Christians are high-minded. I dare say all of us are at some point. So don't be high-minded. Look at it in 1 Timothy 6. 1 Timothy 6, verse 17, he says this. I'm going to move fast today. You probably won't be able to turn to all these. He says, "Charge them that are rich in this world, that they be not high-minded." So there's never been an age where we've had more riches. Poor people in America are rich compared to the rest of the world. So he says you're going to have an issue that you have to watch out for. If riches is available to you, here's one thing that will come along with it. High-minded. Don't be high-minded. Nor trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God, who giveth us richly all things to enjoy. That is, count God your riches. Not the money, because that'll come and go. Mostly go. In 2 Timothy 3, he says this, verse 1, knowing also that in the last days perilous times shall come. Okay, everybody turn there because this is going to get good. 2 Timothy 3, verse 1. Now he's talking about the last days. What last days is he talking about here? Well, there's more than one last days. It could be the last days of the church age, or it could be the last days of Israel's time, the time of Jacob's trouble. It could be the last days of the universe, as in toward the end of the millennium when Satan's loosed for a season. What are these last days? Because that's going to tell us something. Look down at verse 4. This is what happens with the population in the last days. They're traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. That's true now. Now, this could be an example of something that repeats in every dispensation. Here's the way they end. High-minded. Verse 8. Let's see if we can find out something about this. Verse 8. Now, as Jannes and Jambres withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth. Men of corrupt minds reprobate concerning the faith. Okay, so he's given us an allusion to Moses. How many times have you been trying to live your life according to Moses? Never. Not in the church age. But there's coming a time in the tribulation where Moses is going to be very important. Matter of fact, he's going to be here. Okay, so that last days, more than likely, is referring you back to the tribulation. They'll be heady and high-minded. So we don't need to act like it either. Just because that's what's going on in the tribulation with the wicked people, we better not be mimicking them. We should be giving them an example of how to do it right. Look down at verse 17. That the man of God may be perfect, thoroughly furnished unto all good works. Now you should be doing good works, but it doesn't really affect your outcome spiritually. You're going to heaven, period. There's coming a time where people are going to, their salvation is going to be based on works. So last days, more than likely, in this chapter is referring us to tribulation events. We've got Moses on the scene, and good works are necessary. And the common denominator is they're heady and high-minded. That's Shimei. Look at let's look at Shimei. 2 Samuel 16. 2 Samuel 16, verse 5. Samuel 16:5. And when King David came to Behurim, behold, thence came out a man of the family of the house of Saul, whose name was Shimei, the son of Gera. He came forth and cursed still as he came. He's coming out there and he's, hello. That was fast. He came out there and he was letting David know in no uncertain terms that he was not happy with him. Now, this cursing wasn't simply a, I don't like you. It was probably a cursing. We don't think of it this way, but cursing is this. It's designed to cause the supernatural to interfere with the natural. You're asking God to do something. Here he's cursing David. He's probably asking God to destroy this man so that his family will get back their rightful position on the throne. Verse 6. And he cast stones at David and all the and at all the servants of the King David, and all the people and all the mighty men were on his right and on his left. He's pretty stupid. David's men of war are not anything to mess with, and he's throwing sticks at them. You don't bring stones to an army fight. You know, when you're facing down a bazooka, what was that in Tiananmen Square where the kid stood in front of the tank? What an idiot! That thing will run you over nothing flat. Okay, this is this guy. He's insane, heady, high-minded. He figures everybody needs to kowtow to him. Verse 9. Then said Abishag, the son of Zerah, unto the king, Why shouldest this dead dog curse my lord the king? I would be the same way. Let's go get him. Let me go over, I pray thee, and take off his head. I know right where it's attached. Let me take it off. Now, this is the picture. The picture is this. The king has been done wrong. And the natural response is this. He shouldn't be doing that. Let me go destroy him now. David's response is not that. David's response is, let it alone. Let it ride. The end is not, it's not time for judgment yet. There's coming a day of judgment where Shimei will be judged by two means. First of all, he's going to be judged by his own self. He's going to realize, hey, look, I just put myself in a really bad spot here. Then Solomon's going to come along and give him the final solution. And this is going, there's too many verses in that passage. Go to 1 Peter. 1 Peter 2, verse 20. Now, of course, you can make application here to David. He's doing this correctly. He's being buffeted by this heathen here, or this, he's not a heathen, he's a Jew, by this man. And he's taking it. He's just allowing him to do it. Even though the encouragement is, let's go see if we can disconnect his head. And he's done it right. But on the other hand, Shimei should have been able to take the fact that things were not going his way. You don't have to always give voice to your anger. That's how a mob starts. A mob starts as, yes, we're finally getting our way. We're going to push it even faster and farther. 1 Peter 2, verse 20. For what glory is it when you be buffeted for your faults? Ye shall take it patiently. But if, when you do well and suffer for it, you take it patiently, this is acceptable with God. Want to be acceptable with God? Allow yourself to be done wrong. He says when you do the right thing and get in trouble for doing the right thing, God says, I approve. Wow. He says, if you suffer with me, you'll reign with me. There is a fairness to it that man doesn't naturally see. You have no right to reign in eternity with the King of Kings. Nothing you've done qualifies you for that. He says, I'll let you receive wrong when you're doing right. That qualifies you for something. That's acceptable. I'll put you on the throne with me. That's a pretty good deal. Hebrews 13. Hebrews 13:21. He says, make you perfect in every good work to do his will, working in you that which is well-pleasing in his sight, through Jesus Christ, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen. We've seen what's well-pleasing. Well-pleasing for you to be cursed at when you're doing the right thing. That's well-pleasing. He says he's going to work that in you. Wow. Well, there's a reason for it. We've seen it. The fairness is this. One day you're going to be ruling and reigning over other people, if you'll allow this. Now, there is, according to the verse we started with, there's obviously some way you can disallow suffering that God wants to provide for you. Provide for you. Wow. Proverbs 20. Proverbs 20. Proverbs 20, verse 22. The only way you can get through this thing is what this verse right here. Say not thou, I will recompense evil. That is, you did me wrong. Tit for tat. You diss me, and I'm going to turn around and I'm going to do the same or more to you. Usually it's not the same, it's more. Man doesn't feel vindicated unless he's come out on top, not come out even. He says, but wait on the Lord, and he shall save thee. Tough stuff. Now, David is doing it. He's waiting. He's getting pushed from pillar to post. He's running from his son. Out comes Shimei to curse him, and he's not doing anything about it. He's waiting on the Lord to do something about it. Now, sometimes, I think, if it was me, this is what I'm thinking in my mind. David is running for his life. This guy comes out cursing him. He's got bigger fish to fry than Shimei. I've got real problems. I don't care about somebody cursing me. That's not sticks and stones, that whole thing. I'm not worried about that one. Sometimes God gives us bigger problems, so we focus on important things rather than the minor things there to distract us. So he's done this. He's waiting on the Lord to save him, and the Lord's going to. Shimei should have, and he didn't. Therefore, Shimei is going to have to be paid for that. 1 Peter 3, verse 8. 1 Peter 3, verse 8. He says, finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another. Shimei didn't read that verse. Love as brethren. Be pitiful. Be courteous. Oh, that's not good Baptist doctrine right there. That's good Bible doctrine. Verse 9. Not rendering evil for evil or railing for railing, but contrariwise, blessing. That is, when you get railed against, turn around and bless. Knowing that ye are thereunto called. That's what God intends for everybody. Why? That you should inherit a blessing. Okay, if you get to rule and reign with him, you just inherited a blessing, I'd say so. Look down at verse 12. For the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and his ears are open to their prayers. But the face of the Lord is against them that do evil. It's more than just you get a blessing. You also, God's watching to make his naughty list too. He says his eyes are on them that are doing evil too. Now, Shimei does lip service. He gets a realization. David just won. He's coming back to the throne, and he's coming right back through my town. I think I better go eat a little humble pie. And so here's what happens to him. 2 Samuel 19, verse 16. And Shimei, the son of Gera, Benjamite, which was of Behiran, hastened to come down with the men of Judah. Before, he was all about his family name and his family, positions. Not anymore. He's joined up with Judah. In a minute, we're going to see he forgets even the tribe that he's from to meet King David. Drop down to verse 20. Here's his speech that he's going to make. Now, I don't think he means a word of this. Just like his cursing, it's just words. Now, just like his supposed public repentance, it's just words. Verse 20. For thy servant doth know that I have sinned. Good study to do sometime is find all the people who admit to sinning and being a sinner in their repentance that's phony. Pharaoh admits it, but he's not serious. He says, therefore, behold, I am come the first this day. Now, if you're really repenting, you're not trying to keep track of who did it first. I came down first. You know, I'm the real one here. Of all the house of Joseph, I thought it was of the house of Benjamin. When he was cursing, that's what he was talking about, was I'm from the house of Benjamin. Now he switched tribes altogether to go down to meet my lord the king. But Abishag, the son of Zeruiah, answered and said, shall not Shimei be put to death for this? Yes, he will. Well, hold on. I'm going to show you it's not going to happen immediately. But the common thing for a Christian to do is look around and say, you know, I got up early this morning and I repented of all my sins and the ones I hadn't even done yet. And I look around and the Christians that I know are all enjoying theirs. Shouldn't they be punished for that? Well, hold on. God's got a timing for it. He says, because he cursed the Lord's anointed, verse 22. And David said, what have I to do with you, ye sons of Zeruiah, that ye should this day be adversaries unto me? Shall there be any man put to death this day in Israel? For do not I know that I am this day king over Israel? Okay, so we don't have to moan and complain to God that things ain't looking fair. He knows it, and he's not worried about it because he's still king. Didn't affect him one bit in his position. Verse 23. Therefore the king said unto Shimei, thou shalt not die. And the king sware unto him. Now, notice it's a little different swearing than what he was doing. When Shimei came out, he was cursing. Now, the response is David gives him a blessing, the way it ought to be. I dare say most of us, our lives are not lived that way toward God. He gives us non-stop blessing, one after the other. He says he daily loads us up with benefits. And that's a fact. And yet our lives many times don't reflect it, that we're thankful. Look at Romans chapter 14. Romans 14, verse 10. Romans 14:10, he says, but why dost thou judge thy brother, or why dost thou set it not thy brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. For it is written, as I live, saith the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to God. So then every one of us shall give account of himself to God. Shimei showed up, he's given account. And we think, okay, it's just cut and dry here. He gives an account and, you know, everything. David says, I'm not going to put you to death. Go live happily ever after. David just forget it. We have this idea you're supposed to forgive and forget. The next time somebody tells you that, tell them to give you some Bible for it. You know how many times the Bible talks about forgiving and never forgetting? Here, David has forgiven, but he's not going to forget it. He tells his son, see to it that you know what he did. See to it he's punished for it. I think if we offend the holy God, he might forgive it right here, but there's an eternity that's more in the balance than just, getting a pat on the back when we get to the judgment. There's some ruling and reigning that can go on. It's only 1,000 years. That seems like a long time right now. But in eternity, it won't be a long time. So 1,000 years, if you're put in time out, that won't be too long. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'll give you both sides of it when we get there. The problem with Shimei is he got tongue trouble. That's most of our problem, too. The tongue wants to start talking before the brain has figured out what we're supposed to be saying. And that's him. In First Kings 2, verse 80 says this, And behold, thou hast with thee Shimei the son of Gera, a Benjamite of Behiran, which cursed me with a grievous curse in the day when I went to Mahanaim. But he came down to meet me at Jordan, and I swear unto him by the Lord, saying, I will not put thee to death with the sword. Now you can apply it. If David is a type of God, then that's exactly what's happened to you. You've done some stupid things before, and God's given you some grace over it and some forgiveness. Verse 9. David is a picture of God the Father. Jesus is a picture of Christ. Or of his son, a picture of Christ. That'd be Solomon. Here's Solomon. Now therefore hold him not guiltless, for thou art a wise man, and knowest what thou oughtest to do unto him. But his forehead bring thou down to the grave with blood. So here, what's going on is Solomon is going to recompense this man in the end. If we take the types, the type is David is God the Father. David's son is Solomon. Solomon reigns in a reign of a combined Israel that is peaceful. There is no war. He's the type in type. Now, he does mess up the type pretty quickly, like every human does. But in type, the son of David is sitting on David's throne, just as Jesus Christ, the son of David, will rule and reign on David's throne in the millennium. Look at it in 2 Samuel 16. Second Samuel 16, verse 7. Watch his words. And thus Shimei, when he cursed, thus said Shimei when he cursed, Come out, thou bloody man, and thou man of Belial. Now he's called him a man of the devil, Belial. He called him a bloody man. And, David is a bloody man. He's a warrior. But David says, hey, after I'm dead and gone, make sure you make him realize he's going down in blood himself. Wow. I think David had a little revenge going on here. He does. Look at it in Matthew 12:24. Here's the Jews at the time of Jesus walking the earth. He says, But when the Pharisees heard it, they said, This fellow doth not cast out devils, but by Beelzebub, the prince of the devils. Real similar to the cursing that was going on when David was coming out there and Shimei curses him, calls him of Belial. Here they're calling Jesus of Beelzebub. Bad news. Verse 37. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. That is, there is a fairness in God. We might not see it all right now, but one day it's going to be completely fair. In matter of fact, if you're doing what he wants you to do, it'll be more than fair. It'll be beneficial. Look at Psalm 19. Psalm 19, verse 14. I think of David coming through there. He's a powerful king. And I wouldn't care if I was on the throne or not. That would not bother me one bit. I would say off with his head. That's one problem we can solve right now. But here's David's response. Psalm 19:14. David says, Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength, and my Redeemer. That's how you don't be a Shimei, is make sure your words and your heart's meditation is right before God. Look at Isaiah 3 verse 9. Isaiah 3:9. You can almost tell, you're not supposed to talk about it, but you can almost tell who's going to get to be ruling and reigning in the millennium and who's not. We don't have to be ignorant about what's obvious. He says, Isaiah 3 verse 9, the show of their countenance doth witness against them. They declare their sin as Sodom. They hide it not. Woe unto their soul, for they have rewarded evil unto themselves. When do you get a reward? You get a reward after a time period, after something is completed. That is, if you're going to get an inheritance, or you're going to be able to rule and reign with him, it's done when? Later, as a reward. Here he says these people are going around and declaring their sin as though it's okay and acceptable. He says, even it's written all over their face. He says, they're going to get their reward, just as Shimei will. Look at him, 1 Kings 2. 1 Kings 2, verse 46. First Kings 2, verse 36. 2:36. It'll be 36 through 46. And the king sent and called for Shimei, and said unto him, build thee an house in Jerusalem, and dwell there, and go not forth thence any whither. Now that's a pretty good deal. How do you consider that punishment? Go to Jerusalem, build a house, and stay put. Jerusalem is the place everybody wanted to be. That's a good spot. That's dying and going to heaven. That's New Jerusalem. He says, go there and just stay put. Don't move. Look at 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 26. Paul says, I therefore so run, not as uncertainly, so fight I, not as one that beateth the air. That is, he has intention behind this, and he knows there's a reward that he's headed for. Most Christians are not interested in any rewards, therefore they're just living their life by happenstance, the same way the world does. You should be living your life with intention for a crown that you can capture. Find out what they are and go after them on purpose. That's what Paul says I'm doing. I know what I'm trying to win, and I'm on my way to doing it. Galatians 5:7, he says this, you did run well. Who did hinder you that you should not obey the truth? That is, you were doing it. So you can look around and you can see that in some Christians' lives. We've seen it with Shimei. He lives in Jerusalem for a little while, and then something's going to happen, and he reveals who he really is. Philippians 2:16, he says this, holding forth the word of life, that I may rejoice in the day of Christ, that I have not run in vain, neither labored in vain. Paul says, I've not done this, but by saying that, he's saying there's a possibility someone could. You could labor in vain, if you're going to destroy it in a moment. And that's what Shimei is about to do. He's about to take all of the mercy and grace he's been given and destroy it by a stupid move. Look at Hebrews 12, verse 1. He says, wherefore, seeing ye are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses. That cloud of witnesses is the previous chapter, the Hall of Faith. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin that doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. That's a long haul race there with patience. I don't have patience to run, period, physically. I don't like running. Paul says you're going to have to run with patience. That is, it's pace yourself. And if you're doing that, then you're charting it. You're aware of it. James 1, he says this. James 1:12. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation. For when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. That is, there's a crown of life. You'll find, I've done it in the past. You can do it, I'll let y'all do it yourself. For every crown, there's 5 of them. There are 2 ways to earn them. There's not just one way to earn it, there's 2. Go through and identify the 2 ways to earn the crown of life. Some of those are dispensational, and some of them are 2 means of doing it in any dispensation. Here's where it gets interesting. 2 John 1. Like you could find another chapter. 2 John verse 8. He says, look to yourselves that you lose not those things which you have wrought, but that you receive a full reward. That is, you could get to heaven and not receive all of the things that you earned. You could have been on your way to earning a full reward, and then you did something stupid, and you lost part of it. He says, see to it, pay attention, work hard, so you get all of that reward. Revelation 3. He says, behold, I come quickly, Jesus speaking. Hold fast, hold that fast which thou hast, that no man take thy crown. That is, another individual could come up and steal your crown. Now, this of course is tribulation passage here. But we've seen it crossing dispensational lines. The same theory is running from Old Testament all the way through to the end of the tribulation. In 1 Kings 2, here's Shimei. Verse 36 it says, and the king sent and called for Shimei and said unto him, build thee an house in Jerusalem and dwell there, and go not forth thence any whither. That is, stay put, don't move. For it shall be that on the day thou goest out and passest over the brook Kidron, thou shalt know for certain that thou shalt surely die. Thy blood shall be upon thine own head. He says, don't leave. Shimei is understanding this is a good deal. Verse 38. And Shimei says, the saying is good as my lord the king hath said. He agrees to it, signs up for it, sounds good, I'll do it. Verse 39, and it came to pass at the end of, find this word, or these 2 words are important, 3 years. I think he's setting something up here. He's setting up a picture of something. We know we're in heaven while the tribulation is going on down here. There's a 7-year period of tribulation that's broke up into 2 halves, 3.5 years on either side. I believe what's going on is for 3.5 years, we're in heaven being judged according to our works. At the end of that 3.5 years, something happens. We'll get there in a minute. Look at our passage. Look down at verse 41. And so it was told Solomon that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath and was come again. That is, he slipped over the border. Now, you know where Gath is. Gath is a Philistine territory. Picture of the world, wickedness. Now, how many Christians have done that? They slip out into the world for a little while and then slip right back in as though nothing happened. It's taken note. The king knows it. Verse 42, and the king sent and called for Shimei and said unto him, Did I not make thee to swear by the Lord? He didn't even take his own promise serious. Verse 43, Why then hast thou not kept the oath of the Lord, and the commandment that I have charged thee with? So the question is, you made a vow and you didn't keep the vow. You tried to slide around, slip in and slip out, and nobody could notice it. And God said, no, I did. I caught you, buddy. Verse 46. So the king commanded Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, which went out, and fell upon him, and he died. And the kingdom was established in the hand of Solomon. So here, somebody is getting killed prior to the kingdom being established. Now, I'm painting pictures, and the picture is not ever going to be as good as clear, plain instruction. So you paint this picture as vivid or as lightly as you want to. But the picture is this: Solomon's ruling and reigning, which is a picture of Christ in the millennium, begins with somebody being punished for not staying put in Jerusalem when they should have. I'm saying it's a possibility that for the person who did not suffer with Christ, who obviously cannot reign with him, could be confined to New Jerusalem for a period of time, and let's see if we can get some more scripture on it that is clear. In Matthew 25. Matthew 25:14. He says, For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants, and delivered unto them his goods. Drop down to verse 20. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought the 5 talents. So you know the story. He's going through these talents. Some of them do good with it, and some of them do bad with it. Verse 22. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside these. And his Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. That's a perfect setup for what's going on in the millennium. You know, it's not just Christians who are ruling and reigning in the millennium. Now, we've got one way we can do it. If you suffer with him, you also reign with him. In the tribulation, you know how you get, if you're in the tribulation, you're not going to be in the tribulation, but if you were to live through the tribulation, you know how you would qualify for it. Get your head cut off. If the Antichrist cut your head off, then you would get to rule and reign in the millennium. You could die any other way and it wouldn't count. Only your head getting cut off. That's what he says in Revelation. 2 different ways. Here he's saying, there's certain things I've done and a man can qualify to rule and reign, and I'll give him extra things in my kingdom. I mean, it's clear it's about the kingdom. In conclusion, Revelation 3. Revelation 3 verse 18. Revelation 3:18. He says, I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, that thou mayest be clothed. Okay. I'm not worried about being clothed. I've already got clothes. Now, I do realize that the deeds you're doing are adding up to something. Everybody's sewing a garment in heaven. However, I'm one flesh with Christ. I'm not real worried about, am I going to have everything that makes me perfect? You're going to at some point, we know it. But not so for the tribulation saints here. He's telling them you need to do something to have a good garment. Look at it in chapter 16, Revelation 16:15. Revelation 16:15. He says, "Behold, I come as a thief." What a way to describe yourself. I'm a convict. "Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame." Yes, sir. The shame has been written all over Shimei's face. Now I'm going to give you one mystery to reconcile before this is over with. Revelation, I'm almost over. Revelation 19. Revelation 19, verse 8. This is the body of Christ in heaven. Revelation 19, verse 8. Well, let's go back up to verse 7. "Let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him. For the marriage of the Lamb is come." Okay, so when is the marriage of the Lamb? Whenever it is, that's the time stamp he's put on this verse right here. Marriage is over. I say the marriage. You figured out yourself. I'm not going to get mad if you have a different thing than me. I say that the judgment is probably the first 3.5 years in heaven. After that, Satan gets kicked out of heaven. He comes to earth and he's mad because he knows he's only got a short time. And then I say the next 3.5 years is the marriage. He says, verse 7, "Rejoice and give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife hath made herself ready." How did she make herself ready? She went through the judgment. All your bad works, when you go through the judgment, have been burned up. They don't exist anymore. Now you're perfect. So here's the argument. The argument is it's impossible for a Christian to make it through the judgment and be less than perfect. Once you've made it through the judgment, you're perfect. Look at it in verse 8. "And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white, for fine linen is the righteousness of the saints." It was granted to her. She wasn't working for it. She wasn't sewing it. She wasn't going out and buying it. God said, "Hey, I've got a fresh garment for you." Why? Because I made it through the judgment. Good works are there, and the bad ones, they disappeared. He put them through the flame, and they're gone. Now the only thing left is the beautiful bride with a new garment God handed to her, was granted to her. Now, how does that fit in with ruling and reigning? Well, the good works are still there too. Those are the rewards, and that's how you rule and reign. So I don't necessarily think there's a confinement period. I can see where it could be in there, but I don't believe it is in there, because he's granted that she's going to be perfect. The only thing that has come out ahead is if you earn rewards. Those are there as well. Those didn't disappear. Those are still remaining. If you did bad things, God gets rid of those at the judgment. And so the bad things are gone, therefore you can wear a fresh new garment. And the only thing that remains is whatever reward you had earned. That's the ability to inherit in the kingdom.